Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I know it is almost 12 o'clock, so bear with us a little bit. I know that I'm sure everyone's getting hungry and ready for that break, but we have an exciting panel just really talking about inclusive buying and the multicultural space. I'm Zulema Baez. I represent Adsmovil, which is a Hispanic digital company, really super serving the Hispanic community via a multi-screen approach. And I'm going to pass it on to Albert and to Alison to introduce themselves.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Alison Ciccione. I lead U.S. media for McDonald's.
Albert Thompson. I'm the managing director of digital innovation at Walton Isaacson.
So let's get into it, right? Because I know everyone's, again, the time constraints. So obviously, I represent the Hispanic space. I am a Latina, very proud. One of the things that's always shocking to me is, that we're still having this conversation about inclusive buying, about, the importance of the segment. You see all of the data, you see all of the articles that are printed in terms of the buying power of the multicultural space. When you're thinking about the Hispanic community, it makes up 2.8 trillion in buying power. AA is about 1.8, and then if we look at the Asian American population, it's about 1.3. So this is a significant amount of buying power that this multicultural group has. And not only that, but then it makes up about 38% of the U.S. population. So again, not sure why some brands are still kind of in the sideline. Maybe it's not really approaching this group. So one of the things is like, how did you guys approach it, and what did you implement in order to attract this group?
Do you want me to lead on that one? Okay. Um, for McDonald's, it kind of comes naturally because our entire approach, our entire go-to-market approach is about being customer-led, right? So if you think about all the communities that we serve at McDonald's, you can't not have an inclusive approach to your buying because if you aren't inclusive, you're not reaching all of those communities. So being customer led, having that be kind of our North Star, that has made it actually really easy for us to lean in to inclusivity in the way that we approach this space. And so I think that's one of the things that as you look at other brands who are trying to figure out the right way to get into more inclusive buying, start with your customer, start with who is purchasing your product, who is coming in and out of your doors, and be really thoughtful about everyone that is included in that pie, not just the majority of that pie, but the pie in totality.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all the sentiments about customer first because when I look at it, and McDonald's is one of the clients we represent as well. McDonald's is a marketing organization. Marketing is the parent company for those of you who think it's advertising and media. And marketing's design is to facilitate the exchange of goods and service in a marketplace between consumers. And if that's the lead off point, because that means you're in the B2B to C business, the C is for the consumer. Some people are in the B2B business. Then the only thing you're looking at is how do we generate business largely facilitated with other people's money? And that's the consumer. Business is simple, it's other people's money. Otherwise, it's not a business if you're not making money. So McDonald's, like our other client, Lexus, they look at contribution to the money. So a QSR is one of the categories seems to have its head screwed on right, where they seem to understand where the walk-in contribution is to buying what's on the menu. No different than our Lexus client understanding who the walk-in contribution is to buy a $50,000 car. That's it. That's really the starting point. It's amazing to see businesses who are out of touch with what contribution is. And look, I'm not saying advertising has to match contribution dollar for percentage, but it does need to be within a confidence level what makes sense. You can have people contributing 60% multicultural and you're giving 5% of the budget. What are you doing? You're on borrowed time until you start to lose profitability. And I think that is how the business has lost its way. Any top marketer can tell you what they look at is who is contributing to the bottom line and how to plus it up, how to make more. They call it sales goals. And that sets the business trajectory of how you play in the marketplace, how you show up. And there are other factors that contribute into that. But it's great to see clients that sort of get that without bias. They just understand it's just business. It's not personal. We're in business to make money, and we happen to make money off a populace of people who speak a different language across 20 plus countries of origin. It's really not that difficult. But it senses me to see as someone who has a marketing background, people not just exercise basic business principles that are really grounded in understanding where cash flow and opportunity is coming from and how you need to show up in the marketplace.
I would have one build to that. It's like it's the business dynamics, right? That you know are going to drive your business, and that comes from kind of understanding the consumer in totality. But it also it also makes a difference if you are educating yourself on the marketplace. Because in the media space, if you aren't educated on the marketplace or you aren't pushing your agencies to be educated on the marketplace, it makes it really hard to actually then determine, all right, we know our customer in totality, we know who we want to reach, but we actually don't know how to reach them because we aren't as educated as we should be on the different marketplaces that make up kind of that diverse landscape.
The one thing I'd add to that is you guys have what a lot of brands lack: consumer intimacy. Like if you just want to figure out who it, you could just go in a series of McDonald's on any exit ramp on the Eisenhower infrastructure we have in the United States and kind of figure it out. A lot of brands I see are so out of touch with who the consumer is, they don't know who they are, they can't speak to them, they can't identify them, they can't relate to them, and they go back to their gated houses in a gated community. Versus they can't face the world the way it faces you. If you want to be good at multicultural, you got to face the world the way it faces you, and you got to find partners that help you do that effectively. In particular, when you're going against audiences that are not monolithic and have a level of complexity to who their identity is and how they essentially carry that. And I think the one great thing about a QSR operation is business operators have intimacy of knowledge that they share across operators with corporate. So you almost don't get the opportunity to really fail. And I think other brands need to figure out how to seek that level of intimacy to really understand who they're spending money against trying to reach.
Well, obviously, you both are champions for the multicultural space. But how did you advocate for your have that advocacy within your own within your own companies, just saying how important it is to target this audience? Like, what were some of the challenges and what were some of the surprises when you started targeting this group and investing more with them?
Yeah, I would say so first of all, it was the education on all of the communities that we serve, right? Like that was the first thing we just needed everybody to be kind of aware of and educated on. But then beyond that, it can't stop with media. So when we started having these conversations internally at McDonald's, it wasn't a how do we adjust our media spend only. It was how do we create a squad internally who is responsible for making us a more inclusive brand. And that squad needed to include folks from production. It needed to include folks that were managing content creators. It needed to include folks who were managing activations and experiences on the ground. When you have that cross-functional squad who all has the same North Star of, hey, we want to be a more inclusive brand. We want to go to market in a more inclusive way that reflects, the folks that we are, the folks who are driving our business day in and day out. You naturally have this posse that can go with you and help educate the system, right? And that's more powerful than one voice who's trying to get something done. So it was creating kind of this cross-functional group, I think, that allowed us to actually really excel the way that we approach just our media buying and just our go-to-market in general.
I would say for us, we looked at data, and we looked at two factions of it. We looked at like geoscape, census data. I mean, you got to understand when people set up a shopping mall, they're doing a lot of ethnographic studies of who's in the neighborhood who's going to come through and spend money. So they already start to map like who's in that backyard. All retail operations, doesn't matter if it's a Walgreens, a CVS, what have you. They're all looking at this information. We looked at the same information. We said, oh, you have a whole lot of black and brown people around there. Yeah, that's probably where you're going to make your money because most retail is oriented based upon a 5 to 7 mile radius of where that retail is set up. Like, oh, this is studied. This is where the inflow of money is going to come from. So we look at the same data and said, oh, that's probably the audiences where you're going to make your money from. We also looked at contribution of sales. Like we pulled sales statistical and trending. Like, oh, where's growth coming from? It's come from multicultural, Black, Latino, queer, Asian, all of the above. What are we thinking? It's coming from women. And then we presented that to clients to say, hey, your money flow here and beyond trajectory wise is coming from these pockets. If you don't capture them, I can name a series of competitors who will. Matter of fact, they already are. We use that as a catalyst to say, if you don't go capture your unfair share, somebody's going to take it from you, you just be out of the game, or you'll be overspending to play catch up. So we use those two factors at looking at neighborhood block level, who's in the neighborhood, and then looking at revenue data, who's contributing and where they are pocketed. And that's what we presented as a selling case, because sometimes that's the conversation that gets it moving. And look, we're the cheerleaders up here. We get it. But there's always the unsellable you have to sell. And a lot of times those are money people. And that may be a head of finance, a head of sales that you have. And they're looking at different data sets and information to pull the trigger and make a decision because they don't have an emotional, passionate connection to the segment. So we use that, and that really helped accelerate our growth. And even for Lexus in particular, that is what really helped accelerate the Hispanic audience being our number one multicultural audience we pursue. Even though we started with Black, we looked at the population trending, the level of acceleration, the amount of volume this audience was creating. Then we matched that to ability to contribute. We looked at Toyota as an inflow up to Lexus. So we didn't just study luxury, we studied the category that they would move up from. And that became the breeding ground for plotting a business trajectory. Very sort of mathematical of sorts, just because we know the client we're dealing with and what they would see and what they would need to see is demonstrative proof to really sort of get on board, because you can't just sell everyone on the heartstrings of doing what's right.
Great, thank you so much. I have a question, another thing. So obviously, you both are champions. You're selling it through in terms of being in your, in your jobs and through your C-suite. Give me some examples of some great campaigns that you've done, or even some innovation that you've done, or like commitment to the community that has really allowed you to connect with that community. Because one of the things that I sometimes struggle with is when an advertiser, you can tell that they're just trying to check off a box, right? During Hispanic Heritage Month, during June Pride Month, or during Black History Month, you can tell when an advertiser is checking the box. Someone like myself, Latina, I get it when they're just kind of doing that just to check the box. So I know that one of the things that Lexus and McDonald's is the commitment to that community. So you guys share some of that innovation and some of the market opportunities that you guys have had.
I'll tell you what I'm most proud of, specifically from a media standpoint. And again, this extends into these squads that I was talking about, right? So it goes beyond media. But one thing I'm really proud of is the multi-year endeavors that we've put in place with diverse owned partners. It comes from getting educated on the marketplaces and understanding that it's actually not just the spend. It needs to go beyond that. You have to have a relationship to understand what is it going to take to help drive their business, so that the bigger they get, the more they grow, the easier it is for one, them to grow their, clientele that come in, but then for you as an advertiser to reach the consumers that you want to reach on their platform. So for us, it's all about sustainable ecosystems. How can we not check a box, but help build sustainable ecosystems across the diverse owned landscape? So we had about 6 multi-year endeavors, 6 partners that we built out, a multi-year partnership with, that was not just based on spend. It was based on strategic intent. How can we help grow your business and at the same time be mutually beneficial for McDonald's? Because again, this is an investment. So you want to make sure that there's strategy going along with these partnerships. Those 6 are coming back in 2024, and we're upping it to 9. And I think the cool thing about how we're thinking about those is it's truly diverse owned. That means it is not just ethnicity. We're also thinking about the LGBTQ plus community. We are going beyond to try to think about all of those platforms that just need help growing their business, because they do have the consumers that you want to reach. They do have them. They just need your help to help grow their platforms in a sustainable way.
Yeah, I think for us, the first statement I would make is behind all great agency work is a client who was willing to take the risk, because we don't get there by ourselves. So I'll give a few examples. My one McDonald's example is the agency put a pool in the middle of the street of BET Experience. Thank you, McDonald's. Because I don't know what's a bigger risk of putting a pool in the middle of the street in LA, the BET Experience, but that was probably one of the tops of the list. But you have to have client relationships or rapport to trust you can execute and pull that off, because that becomes a different PR story if it's a leaky pool or something. But when I look at other things we've done, we obviously participated and brought Lexus into Black Panther 1 and 2. That was huge. We had a spoken word TV show. We had a racing show. And I think when I look at even the work on the Hispanic side, we helped validate a lot of the Hispanic partners that they mattered because the Lexus brand attached to it, similar to McDonald's, matters. When people see that, like, oh, you're legit. We've had some great work with partners over the years. Some of them we supported the launch of them. I think one of the more pivotal works, maybe not as PRable, is the work we actually did with Adsmovil, where we had an intelligent conversation about all of the subcultures, all the 20 plus countries of origin. And I said, look, we need to start speaking to all of them. We can't do 20 different TV spots. Nobody's going to fund that. And a lot of the media partners may represent a country of origin based on who runs it. And we literally did influencer work and literally went country by country. I think the Uruguayans and the Paraguayans are hiding out. We can't find them. But I think all the other countries, we looked at Venezuela and Colombia and Ecuador and Salvador, and it was like, we got to get away from just Puerto Rican, Dominican, Cuban, and Mexican, so that everyone has a chance to see themselves in the likeness of our brand. And that was just an important statement, and we continue to have those conversations. I think the other thing we've done is make sure we don't align around content that overly stigmatizes, like we don't have to do yet another soccer program or another mute Latin artist program. We start looking at, well, Latinos do the same thing that white Americans and Black Americans do. Let's get into food and cooking. Let's get into fashion. Let's get into style. Let's get into dance. Let's get into all the cultural things that get underserved and serve them up to make it a teachable moment for the broader cultures that this culture lives in culture the same way, they do it differently. That's a very important statement, and we did so by listening to our partners in their respective cultures tell us about what it meant. We took that, synthesized it, put it back in the RFP, put it back to them, and went and executed it. And that's what a lot of that starts to look like. We use them as a feedback loop, just to get better at how we execute it in the market. And that's part of the game here. And that's one of the things when you talk about ticking boxes, people don't want to do. They don't want to be learned and taught and led to get to a point where they can then turn around and actually lead.
And I think we have some video that we can share for both Lexus and McDonald's as well as just some of this innovation that they've done and their commitment to the community.
Hey, Cactus Buddy.
Can I get a...
Look at that beauty.
Ah, look at you. Salir de la cama. Finished? Of course not. Ba-la-ba-ba-ba.
Ok, ahora sí vamos.
Rise and shine. I'm Kid Cudi.
Congratulations. You're McDonald's rich.
He likes a quarter pounder.
Fillet of fish.
You like French fries and milkshakes.
Yes, I do.
The Happy Meal for grown-ups.
Okay.
That's right.
I'm loving it.
It's like cruel to do right
Excellent,
before
yeah.
lunch.
So that was I have to say, now I'm sorry because now I'm sure everyone is even more hungry now after that. But bear with us, we were almost wrapping up, and now we're just going to show the Lexus clip now.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
El viento soba tu cabello. Me matan esos ojos bellos. Me gusta el color de tu piel, el color y cómo me hace sentir. Me gusta tu boquita, ese labial rosita y cómo me besas a mí. Contigo quiero despertar hacerlo después de fumar. Ya no tengo nada que buscar, algo fuera de aquí. Tú combinas con el mar, ese bikini se ve fenomenal. No hay gravedad que me pueda elevar, me pones mal a mí. Aceleras todos mis latidos, es que me gusta todo de ti. De tu a tu parte, ¿cuál he sido? Es que me gusta todo de ti. Es que me gusta todo de ti.
Gracias a mis amigos de Lexus.
Gracias, Lexus, me la pasé increíble, me encantó el carro.
Lexus, muchas gracias.
Gracias, Lexus.
Gracias, Lexus.
Muchísimas gracias, Lexus.
Gracias, Lexus.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Lexus.
Gracias, Lexus. So now I'm hungry and I want to go dancing. So those are my issues that I'm having right now. But just really to wrap it up, obviously your commitment to multicultural is, evident in everything that you guys do, and your commitment to the community, even like things that you do with like the ASED program and things like that. What advice would you give a brand that's, trying to get into the space? Like, what are the must-dos? Like, what could they really do to make sure that they grow with this community, and engage with them?
I would say, first and foremost, educate yourself. Educate yourself on your consumer. Educate yourself on the marketplace in which that consumer spends their time. And then secondarily, build relationships versus throwing money. Just don't throw money at something and say, all right, I checked that box, and so now I can move on. It's not going to help build these sustainable ecosystems that we desperately need. So build the relationships, spend with them, invest with these diverse-owned partners, but then also work with them to help them grow their platforms, because that's when you're going to start to reach these consumers exactly where they are in a place that is not only relevant for them, but also going to drive your business and your brand.
Yeah, that was probably a perfect summary in terms of the relationship building aspect. Look, it takes a crowd of witnesses to get there. Like, you're not going to get it there on your own just because you have money. And you need to bring a lot of people with you who are just as impassioned about it. Our Hispanic business has grown as the partnerships have grown, as Hispanic media companies have literally launched products under themselves. It's very much a symbiotic relationship in which we got it there. It's not like we were so mature and we were waiting for them to catch up. We very much did this together, essentially in lockstep. We are now in a series of dealer markets for Lexus. I think we're over 31 from a multicultural perspective. A lot of them are Hispanic. And we have partners who have helped us get there. Adsmovil in general has helped us build the business in the business case. With their success comes our success, and we both get success together. And we look at what we do at a national level and the things we put together content-wise, it has very much been the same. We've taken them, our partners, to new places. They have introduced us to new things. It's really an ebb and flow. But I think with the main thing that we spent time listening to them. And we literally asked, like, what do you hate about Hispanic marketing? Like, what sucks? Let's talk about some brands who suck at it. Let's talk about some agencies who suck at it. And we were very candid. And we're like, oh, we're not doing that. Well, tell us what it would look like if you had the money. Well, we do this, this, and this. Okay, then let's execute that. What are the inflection points being missed? Okay, this. Let's talk about casting. What do you think about who's represented on screen? Is that authentic enough? Is it diverse enough? Because if you look through a highlight reel, I think if you saw some people in the street, you'd be like, oh, that's not a Latino. That's somebody who's Caucasian. I mean, so we really got into all the sticking points they hate so that in a partnership together, we put a better product forward. So we looked at what the points of friction were that they were grappling with themselves and needing to accept revenue because they have to make revenue, but kind of not liking the partnership. And I think we created a law of attraction where people just want to work with us, even though we don't have a lot of money. We're not a big holding company agency. And I would probably say the same for McDonald's. You see the body of working, like, that's what we want to be associated with. We want that money. We've actually been in a position where people have taken launch money from us that was less than another brand because they knew the work we were going to produce was going to be better than that other brand. And that meant more than the bottom line money. They were like, we'll get them in a chapter 2. But we want you to get out the gate to validate this because you're going to do this at a standard that we need to set our business imperative of where we're trying to go and where we can take brands. And that's a very important lens to hone in on. So my recommendation, beyond the education piece, which is huge, is there are partners who will take you there if you listen and find ways to participate with them, and they will ride with you all the way through. And you need people who will sit alongside you and shotgun to see whatever sort of cultural inclusive promised land you're trying to reach, that you reach it together and you continue to build essentially on top of that.
But we're running out of time. But I just want to say thank you so much for your commitment to the multicultural space. And hopefully everyone's eyes were a little opened up today in terms of that power that the multicultural space has. Thank you.
Thank you.